45. Do not do anything with it yet. Just let the number sit there. Now answer this. What percentage of the world's countries are in Africa? Do not look it up. Do not count. Just estimate. You have a number. It feels as though it came from you. That feeling is the trap. The correct answer is about 28%. Using the common count of 195 countries, 54 are in Africa. If your estimate was too high, it may not have been because you know less geographies than you thought. It may be because the first number in the room was 45. The number had nothing to do with the question, but it entered the answer anyway. Notice the order. You did not first ask yourself how many countries exist, then how many are in Africa, then divide one by the other. Most minds do not work that way under pressure. They search for something close enough to begin with. And because 45 was already lit up, it became easier to begin there than to begin from nothing. This is the anchoring effect. The first number, price, forecast, salary, risk, or vivid value that enters the mind becomes a hidden starting point. System 1 anchors on it. System 2 adjusts away from it. Then it stops too soon. And after that, confidence arrives to protect the estimate as if it were self-generated. Same doctor, same chart, same statistic. But the chart did not arrive into an empty mind. A different number got there first. In the early 1970s, Kahneman and Tversky brought a wheel of fortune into a psychology experiment. It looked random. It sounded random. The wheel clicked against its flapper, slowed, and stopped. But the wheel was rigged. It could only stop at two numbers, 10 or 6 to 5. Participants watched it spin. They saw the number. Then they were asked a question that had nothing to do with the wheel. What percentage of African nations are members of the UN? The wheel was obviously irrelevant. It did not contain information about African nations, international institutions, geography, politics, or anything else. People who saw the wheel land on 10 estimated, on average, 25%. People who saw it land on 65 estimated, on average, 45%. A 20-point difference. Moved by a wheel, a number everyone knew was meaningless. This matters because awareness is not immunity. The participants did not think the wheel was a sacred oracle. They did not think the wheel was secretly measuring the United Nations. They knew it was random. But knowing that a number is irrelevant is different from removing its effect. The mind can reject a number as evidence while still using it as a starting point. That is the anchoring effect in its purest form. An arbitrary value enters the mind, and later judgment bends around it. Not completely, not visibly, but enough. The first explanation was simple. When asked for an estimate, people start from an anchor and adjust away. But adjustment is effortful. It belongs to System 2, and System 2 is not generous with effort. So the mind moves away from the anchor until the new number feels plausible. Then it stops. The stopping point feels reasonable. That is the danger. Reasonable is not the same as corrected. An estimate can feel considered and still be anchored. This is why high anchors produce high estimates, low anchors produce low estimates, and both groups believe they have adjusted enough. They have adjusted, just not far enough. The mind treats plausibility like a finish line. It is often only the first checkpoint. But anchoring is not only mechanical adjustment. A number can also prime the mind. Ask people whether Gandhi was more or less than 144 years old when he died. No one believes Gandhi lived to 144. The number is absurd. But it still activates a region of thought. Old age, longevity, endurance, a life stretched across time. Those ideas become easier to retrieve. And because they are easier to retrieve, the final estimate shifts upward. The anchor did not merely set a starting point. It changed what evidence felt available. Researchers showed the same effect with temperatures. A warm numerical anchor made summer words easier to bring to mind. A cold numerical anchor made winter words easier. They showed it with prices. A high-price anchor for a German car made luxury brands easier to think about. A low-price anchor made cheaper brands easier. The number changed the mental search. It did not need to be believed. It only needed to be encountered. This is why the phrase, "just a number," is psychologically naive. A number can be false and still organize attention. It can be absurd and still activate a neighborhood of ideas. It can be visibly strategic and still define what counts as a reasonable response. When a number enters first, it begins selecting the evidence that will later seem to justify it. This is why numbers in the environment matter. A room full of numbers is not neutral. It is a room full of possible starting points. If anchoring only worked on students and laboratories, it would be a curiosity. It is not a curiosity. In one study, real estate agents evaluated a house. The house was the same in every condition. The square footage was the same. The neighborhood was the same. The comparable sales were the same. Only the listing price changed. The agent's estimates of fair value moved with the listing price. Higher estimate, low listing price, lower estimate. The anchoring index was 41%. That means the arbitrary listing price accounted for a large part of professional judgment. The students in the same study were influenced too. Their anchoring index was 48%. The professionals did better, but not by much. And the most revealing difference was not accuracy. It was awareness. The students admitted the listing price influenced them. The agents denied it. They pointed to the roof, the neighborhood, the floor plan, the market. They had reasons. The reasons were real, but the starting point had already moved. This is the older confidence machine beginning to wake up. Once the estimate is formed, the mind does not experience it as the listing price plus some insufficient adjustment. It experiences it as a judgment supported by reasons. The floor plan becomes evidence. The neighborhood becomes evidence. The neighborhood becomes evidence after the anchor has already set the range. And because the reasons are coherent, the estimate feels earned. Anchors are everywhere. Money changes hands. A price tag is not just information about what a seller wants. It is a proposal for what the object should be worth in your mind. A sale price works because the original price is still visible. You do not experience the discount as an absolute price. You experience it as movement away from a number someone else supplied. The same pattern appears in salary negotiations. The first number on the table shapes the zone of possible agreement. Every later number becomes an adjustment from the first. And because adjustments are insufficient, the first mover often gets to define the room. This is why an extreme first offer can be powerful, even when everyone recognizes it as strategic. Knowing that a number is manipulative does not remove it from the mind. It only adds a second thought on top of the first one. System 2 says, ignore that. System 1 has already started from there. Salary negotiations are especially vulnerable because there is rarely a single obvious truth. A salary is not like the boiling point of water. It is a value negotiated inside a fog of market rates, self-worth, status, leverage, and fear. That fog gives the first number room to work. If the initial offer is low, later increases can feel generous while still leaving the final number below the relevant market. If the candidate's first request is high, the employer may reject it consciously while still adjusting from it unconsciously. The anchor does not decide the outcome by itself. It defines the path along which the outcome will move. The courtroom should be the opposite of this. Law is supposed to discipline judgment. Procedure is supposed to protect decisions from irrelevant noise. But numbers still get in. In a study with experienced German judges, participants evaluated a shoplifting case after rolling loaded dice. The dice landed on either 3 or 9. Judges who rolled a 9 gave a higher sentence than judges who rolled a 3. The dice were irrelevant. The judges knew the dice were irrelevant. Still, The number moved the sentence. The same logic matters in civil cases. A large damages request can pull awards upward. A damages cap can limit very large awards while also making smaller awards orbit a larger number than they otherwise would have. The legal question has not changed. The reference point has. This is why legal numbers are never merely legal numbers. A demand, a cap, a sentencing recommendation, a settlement offer, a prior award, each can become the mental zero point from which later judgments move. Sometimes that is appropriate. Prior cases can discipline the imagination. Sentencing guidelines can reduce arbitrary variation. But when the number is poorly chosen, strategically inflated, or irrelevant to the case, it does not stop being powerful. It becomes powerful and dirty at the same time. The anchor does not need to be dramatic. It can be a small sign in a supermarket. In a grocery store experiment, shoppers saw a display of soup cans. One sign said, "Limit of 12 per person." Another version had no limit. Shoppers who saw the limit bought about 7 cans. Shoppers who saw no limit bought about 3.5. The word limit sounded restrictive. The number 12 still expanded the amount that felt normal. The same thing happens in charity. Ask for $5 and generosity shrinks. Ask for 400 and generosity expands. The donor may not give 400, but the ask defines the scale. A forecast can work the same way. If a headline says a company may be worth $1 trillion, every later estimate is pulled into the orbit of trillion. If an analyst says a recession has a 30% chance, the number begins to feel like a property of the future instead of a fragile model of it. If a poll shows a candidate leading by 9 points, the next poll is experienced as movement from 9, not as a fresh measurement with its own uncertainty. Anchors make dynamic things feel fixed. They turn uncertain landscapes into number lines. Even medical judgment can be touched by this. A risk estimate framed after a vivid number, a prior case, a badly chosen threshold, or a population average from the wrong group can become a starting point for a patient who is not actually represented by it. Imagine a doctor told that a treatment works in 45% of a broad population. Then imagine that the patient's actual subgroup has an 18% survival rate. Both numbers may be real. Only one may be relevant. The danger is not that the doctor cannot understand the difference. The danger is that the first number furnishes the room before the relevant number arrives. The later statistic has to fight inside a mind that already has furniture. Medicine needs numbers. But not every number in the room deserves to become a reference point. That difference is where judgment either becomes disciplined or contaminated. Not every anchor is poison. A useful reference point is relevant, explicit, and earned. The average sale price of similar houses is useful. The base rate for patients like this one is useful. The median salary for this role, in this market, with this experience level, is useful. A forecast built from comparable cases is useful. These numbers are not perfect, but they are disciplined. They tell you where to begin because they belong to the problem. A contaminating anchor is different. It arrives first, loudly, vividly, or accidentally. It may be arbitrary. It may be strategic. It may be true for another case and wrong for this one. It may be a price tag, a salary request, a plaintiff's demand, a charity ask, a forecast headline, a hospital threshold, or a number someone said while walking down a corridor. The mind often treats both kinds of number. It starts there. Then it adjusts. Then it stops too soon. The hardest cases are the mixed cases. A number can be partly relevant and partly misleading. A salary band can be real, but drawn from the wrong city. A house comparable can be nearby, but not actually comparable. A medical survival rate can be accurate for a broad population, but wrong for a specific patient. A legal precedent can resemble the case emotionally while differing in the fact that matters. System 1 is not built to audit those distinctions. It sees a number with the right surface shape, and treats it as a place to begin. The defense is not to pretend you can ignore anchors. You usually cannot. The defense is to choose the starting point before the world chooses one for you. Ask, what is the baseline? What is the reference class? What number would I use if I had not just seen this one? Was this anchor selected because it is informative, or because it was first? If the anchor is outrageous, do not negotiate with it as if it deserves a place in the calculation. Reject it. Reset the frame. Find a relevant reference point. Then adjust from there. This is not elegant. It is not intuitive. It does not feel like genius. It is closer to hygiene. You are cleaning the estimate before confidence has time to harden around it. There is another defense, more uncomfortable. Write down your estimate before you see the anchor, before the salary offer, before the list price, before the damages demand, before the forecast headline, before the medical threshold. The written estimate will not be perfect, but it gives system to a memory of where it stood before the room changed. Without that memory, the mind rewrites the path. It forgets the starting point was planted. It remembers only the final number and the reasons that gathered around it. Return to the hospital. The doctor believes she is estimating from the chart. But the chart did not arrive first. The first number was spoken in the corridor. 40%. Maybe 45? Then came the page. 18% survival. Different frame, different frame, different source. But now all of the numbers are in the same mind. The chart asks for a comparison. She has no time to perform. Is 45 a useful reference point, or a contaminant? Is 18 a base rate, a frame, a warning, a hope, or a number from the wrong class? What would she estimate if the corridor had been silent? There is no time. She adjusts. She believes she has adjusted. She stops at a number that feels plausible. And because the number feels plausible, it begins to feel earned. That is the bridge to confidence. Confidence is not always a signal that the estimate is clean. Sometimes it is the feeling of coherence forming around a contaminated starting point. The first number got in. The adjustment was too small. Then coherence did the rest. In the next episode, we will follow that coherence, the machine that turns partial evidence into certainty and certainty into action.